Hi, so my name is Aira, and I recently wrote a poetry book, Anachronic Sensibility, and I decided to do a deep dive into one of the poems. It's called Reynisfjara, and it's one of the most personal and important things I have ever written for myself, and it's currently 2 a.m. and I thought it best to do it at this time because I wrote it at a time not much unlike this. So I don't know how long this is gonna be, but we'll see. I might upload it as a video podcast or something. It's a long poem, but it's essentially about a girl journeying through her childhood into adolescence and then her early 20s. And I'm a firm believer of the fact your childhood shapes you, your childhood shapes your life. So, this poem is essentially a tale of her present mind state being influenced by her defensive mechanisms of childhood. So yeah, I'll do my best to explain as well as possible. So I think let's go. Reynisfjara. She proceeds with malicious intentions to do to time what time did to her, just like the cold, deep blue Atlantic waters at Reynisfjara, where the tide called and reeled her in. Under the surface, water filled up her lungs. Never taught to swim, mortified, she gives in to an urge that dare not speak its name. Silenced, her screams would remain muffled for years to come. Deceptive calm of the surface in sight, invisible, the pain she won't question. Sometimes she wondered if her life was made of borrowed breaths, the story should have ended then, and maybe that's why the melody on repeat echoed. Or maybe the shallow attempts to stay afloat left her inexplicably insane, irreparably broken. So, to start off, this little girl has lost faith in people and her intuition and her idea and a future image of her own self, and she over time becomes pessimistic and gets filled with all these negative emotions that get bottled up inside her, and she decides to move with malicious intentions. She decides to abandon people, she decides to hurt people just as people did to her. And she, at a point of time in her life, became so isolated and felt so low that she decided to take one of the worst decisions possible any person could take. She wanted to call it off, end it all, and this somehow she did not in that moment. And even though life isn't black and white, it's constantly gray. You don't move from complete blackness to complete white, complete light. The dark follows you everywhere. In fact, today only I heard someone say that the only way you know you're standing in light is if your shadow follows. So I think that's beautiful. But yeah, when your shadows do follow, sometimes they can take over and take you back to a very dark mental place. So that's why she wonders if this is all borrowed and isn't really meant to be. And her attempts seem shallow now because it's so hard to keep pushing to stay afloat. She just wants to sink at times because that seems like the easier thing to do. Moving on. The last of the sweetness of a bullied season, spellbound to reminisce submerged reasons, living in the spotlight of nostalgia's heat, threatening shakedowns to remain yawning, suspended in time at 4 feet tall, lending her nightly terrors for a decade on the verge. Requiem dreams of unrequited love, what should have been dead, lingered on. Frozen, their ghost chived how she won't ever belong. Countless indiscretions commit to it to avoid being alone. Pinched enough fiction to dilute the reality of her home. She was in love with this place, but the place left her isolated to rot. Till whatever it was that the fight was about went away, she hid behind locked doors to feel safe and sound. So, the bullied season is essentially her childhood, and it consists of both family troubles, school troubles, not understanding what is going on around you. Spellbound to reminisce submerged reasons. She has a hard time forgetting things. As an adult, she understands much more now why. But while you're going through it, those 20 something years, they're odd, they're off, and you are forced to relive a lot of negative memories just because your mind doesn't seem to get that they're not good for you and it should stop playing them in nightly terrors and keep bad dreams away. In fact, that's something that led her to collect dream catchers like a crazy person. But no amount of dream catchers turned out to be ever enough, so she threw them all away, except one very pretty one that she kept. Suspending it in time at 4 feet tall, her mind somehow stays stuck at that point of time, and she grew a weird attachment that would haunt her for quite some time. And that attachment plus other people from that point of time sort of followed her into her 20s and taunted her that that's that person was the one that belonged, and who you're becoming is not right. The reason you're feeling uncomfortable is not growth but simply that you're wrong. And she had to fight those thoughts away, and she ended up isolating herself, and she still manages to do that despite knowing better, and binged enough fiction to dilute the reality of her home is, I think, the simplest way to put it is she dived into books, she dived into movies, TV shows, she made bonds with characters that were missing from her reality, and it happened to such an extent that in fact did become her reality. She was raised by these movies, these TV shows, music. She was raised by music, the words in music. She has a song for every person in her life, for every moment of her life that has meant something. And she does not think of people in, I would say, she thinks of them in notes, she thinks of them in music, in symphonies, harmonies. They're not, that's how all of these things come back to her. Every time she gets driven back to a memory or a place or has a nightmare, you can be pretty sure that a song or a character took her there, because they're the people who raised her, and they have this weird control on her mind that she can't seem to regulate, because it's not a bad thing. A lot of good also comes from it, because there's some of the most positive anchors in her life, But yeah, when they have negative memories attached to it, it becomes difficult for her. And she tends to isolate, she tends to retreat and hide behind locked doors, and she does not like keeping her door open. She hates it. She is scared of the outside world. When the door is closed, the fantasy can begin. She is inside her world, she is safe. Moving on. Melancholic harpstrings made the back score. Should have been delicate, the times were obnoxious. These two lines, by the way, I really love. I really love that I came up with it. Melancholic harpstrings made the back score. I think harp because it's one of the most eerie sounding instruments. And melancholia, that vibe of all of this time passing with that back score. And should have been delicate, the times were obnoxious. As a child, your childhood should be beautiful, should be delicate, but unfortunately in this world most of us do not get that because of several reasons. And some are personal, some are environmental. You either don't understand yourself or people around you don't understand you. You could have psychological issues because of some incident, and it never gets looked at or understood or brought up, and it can be traumatizing at times, triggering at times. It can become a trigger for you. So yeah, moving on. Lurking in the shadows in an allotted haven, fearsome their love braided her fevers. Exhaustive screenings before loaning any door, none done of these shelters, traumatizing children. Renaissance murals of calamities on the walls, all that prime of floral youth tossed out to be forgotten. She refused to pray for so long. She needed proof of his conviction. He could have been the only one to set her up. For a world drained of sympathy, overfilling her cup with empathy, an imbalance bringing her to her knees again, scraping the barrel for apathy. There's only so many times one can glue back on. Glass hearts he shatters for the world to move along. So, by the way, I haven't read this poem in one sitting since I wrote it because I was a crying mess, and I decided to read it now because I think I needed to. So, exhaustive screenings before loaning any dough, none done of these shelters, traumatizing children. So this is a commentary on how see, I do understand money is essential, and it's what we need for living, but sometimes the world can be so driven monetarily that they forget to address the human aspect of stuff. And this is basically me observing that transactions about money are so closely guarded in our society. Who took what, how much, when are they supposed to return it? But when it comes to psychological transactions, especially during childhood, there's hardly any guard over them. Like, how much anger has that child absorbed, how much pain has that child absorbed? Has it been replaced with love? Has it been mellowed with understanding? Has the child been told what is right and what is wrong so they can actually process everything around them? Or are they just sitting in a corner absorbing fiction and coming to negative conclusions about themselves, which are going to shape their reality? So yeah, I feel like that screening needs to happen at some point. And Yeah, another thing is, for me personally, I've said this to my friends a lot, that I feel like a sponge who absorbs the emotions people around me are feeling. If it's love, if it's hate, if it's anger, if it's positive, if it's negative. And sometimes when you're a person who people naturally gravitate towards to open up, um, because you've learned to listen, because maybe people didn't listen to you, uh, they can sometimes bring in a lot of negativity, not directed towards you, but from their own lives. And remember, this is the girl who views the world through other people, is learning how to not do that. But yeah, she grew up like that, and it wasn't checked. She wasn't screened for this thing that she wasn't supposed to be doing. But um the world is drained of sympathy, we all know that. Me being a sponge, the cup got overfilled with empathy. It absorbed too much anger, too much negativity, and it absorbed love and positivity also, without which I wouldn't have been here. But sometimes that negativity can overtake, because I do think humans tend to focus on negative emotions way, way, way more than positivity. And yeah, I am no different. And the imbalance brought her to her knees, and she was scraping the barrel for apathy. She just did not want to feel either stuff, good or bad, at one point. It's too much. The sensitivity is too alarming. Just take all of this away. Thank you, please. Sorry. There's only so many times one can glue back on glass hearts. He shatters for the world to move along. So, uh, this is actually a funny sentence for me, because so many times when something like this is happening to you, your closest people, your friends will tell you, and I think it's also Gen Z millennium thing, that when the going gets tough, it's actually God doing character development for you. So hold on, because the plot's about to get so much more better. But yeah, it's like, how many times though? Like, does he know he's done this before? Did he lose track? Yeah, it's getting a bit much. I know you want the world to move along, and that's why you keep shattering our hearts, and they're really delicate, they're glass hearts. Um, yeah, like, I'm all for character development, but the character's been developed. The character is dying now. Please. Okay, moving along. Lonely conditions of a troubled domestic pushed her deep into the sounds of music. Traced a hopeless romantic refusing to fade, even as the last of her resilience snapped. Drums beating to her weakening grip on earth, she dipped her feet in a pool of blood, then chanted away with her Frankenstein heart, holding the door open for everyone to depart. Outlandish was her strange rearing, standing so tall with the lessons rooted in chords. Choreographed her memories to sink seamlessly, she remembers the chronology of their love leaving. So when you rethink the past, don't blame her for all that she did. Blame the damn beat instead. So I think I just talked about this, but to quickly go over, trouble domestic, and yeah, just sometimes your home conditions and your environmental conditions can push you into isolation. And in that isolation, I found my best friend, music. And music did raise me, and it made me into a hopeless romantic. And sometimes that hope can be more problematic than enduring. So that's I don't know how I feel about that still. But drums beating to her weakening grip on earth, she dipped her feet in a pool of blood. Um, so the vision I had for this sentence was, when all of this isolation is taking place and you feel like you don't belong and you're moving away from everything that keeps you grounded, that you hold dear, you sometimes you sort of just dive into it. So I did, and I allowed myself to isolate, and I allowed myself to not be close to the people who mean a lot to me. And dipping my feet in a pool of blood then essentially means I'm that blood essentially represents those relationships dying. So I've just like, and I've somehow anointed it, like how you, I don't know, the best way to explain it would be that instead of thinking of it as loss at that point of time, that isolation and that sort of, yeah, I'm better off and I can take care of myself and I'm used to this, and yeah, I'll show you. I just took that as a sign of holy intervention, or a sign of, yeah, I can do it. And my Frankenstein heart put together, that shattered glass heart, uh, very blah looking now, emotionally and psychologically speaking. She then just held the door open for people to leave. She didn't wait for them to say or abandon her in a predictable manner. She just outright, she sensed it and she said, yeah, just bye, go away. Outlandish was her strange rearing, standing so tall with the lessons rooted in chords. She truly believed that what she's doing is wonderful, and uh, that she's really coming into her own, and these lessons were sometimes wrongfully rooted in chords, music, that yeah, I can do all of this on my own. So I let people go. As she has music assigned to people, she assigned music to them leaving as well. And yeah, those songs are not a happy memory for her because they remind her of people she really liked, people she really loved leaving her. So that's what this means. And sometimes, because of that, she acted crazy and like a lunatic, and some people might even say psychotic, overly sensitive. But she's asking you to not blame her, to blame the beat, because essentially the beat raised her. So yeah, the beat told her to do so. Moving on. Locked herself away again, she went back to the ivory tower, searching for the lost incandescent throne. It was getting old, how nothing ever did, preserved in time to relive the tormented farewell set in stone. She mapped out the blocks of her hometown, chance encounters with phantom angels and demons, stuck people in positions for a decade, maybe more, and made them objects of the affection she never got. Tides turned, but not when she wailed, laid to rest, ashes on the shore of the ghost that couldn't commit. She felt hopelessness peering through the window, lost in translation, her futile attempts to be understood. The most they made of these words was only through all of what they experienced. So I think this is one of my favorite paragraphs in this poem. um when she would lock herself away, she is looking for that incandescent throne, that good girl throne where everything was right. There was light, there was shine. Um, she wasn't yet introduced to the duplicity of life. She was okay. She was she was safe. She was guarded. She wasn't traumatized, and she used to have a lot of night. I think the best way to explain the title would be, why I called it Reynisfjara is because my brain has this thing it does where it shows me a lot of nightmares about bad things in my life. And Reynisfjara is a very shady beach. It's in Iceland. It's the black sand beach, and something about the ocean floor. It is such that it can be unnerving how quickly you can get rattled and taken away and sink to the bottom of the ocean. And I think that's what these dreams have done to me throughout my lifetime. Getting old, how nothing ever did, because hello, my brain would, whenever, wherever, just give me a quick flashback. Hey, you seem to have forgotten this bad thing happened, so here's a quick reminder. Relive that tormented farewell set in stone. She stuck people in positions for a decade and then made them objects of the affection that she never got. I think this one speaks for itself. And the hopelessness of trying to explain all of this through writing that she started when she was, I think, 12 years old or 13 years old, was really sinking in, because after a point, after sharing some of it, she might have made a quick judgment, which I still don't know where I stand on it, that people only understand your words through their experience. You can be descriptive, you can lay it out for them, but unfortunately human emotion, the complicated thing that it is, sometimes people can only see you through their lens, and there's nothing you can do to change that, because that's how it is. Move on. The scariest of feelings, the most threatening of them all, was crooked nostalgia pouring over her chest, a longing eternal. Drowning in pitch black hollows of recall, she hated craving for men and women long gone, unwillingly transported to mid fall. Once an enthusiast of emotional immersions, she dreaded introspection to find the pieces still missing. Magnificent, enticing monsters beat up her foolish angels, mangled any orators who attempted evasion. The clues of these vacancies became apparent when she discovered, buried under a keepsake clock, diary entries tracing back to when she was just 11, when people relatable were unseen, unheard of. They forgot to check in if she was growing up unfazed. Spinning visceral mayhem, her mind grew in the trenches, unattended. So, so basically, longing and nostalgia, though sometimes positive, they can sometimes be very detrimental to a person's mental health. And yeah, I'm actually so happy that I was able to word it this way, because reading it now, that's what it feels like, drowning in pitch black hollows of recall. That's what it, like, when you wake up from that nightmare where a person you loved has left you, and it doesn't essentially mean death or people physically leaving. It can sometimes means they're present, but they have left you emotionally. They're there, and but you sort of start mourning the person they were, because the person who they used to be was your friend, but maybe who they've become is somebody you don't know, somebody you can't relate, and sometimes even someone you don't understand, you disapprove of, which can be really disheartening. Because I've been blessed to find friendships that I've grown with, and I've changed with those people, and we have taken into account each other's life experiences and understood the new growth versions of each other. So sometimes that does not happen with a few friends, with a few people, a few family members, even, where the people who they've become is not somebody you can get on board with because of your personal beliefs. Once an enthusiast of emotional emotions, she dreaded introspections to find the pieces still missing. So, yeah, basically, I used to take deep dives through music and through fiction into the strength of human emotion. I used to love love. I used to love the idea of romance, the idea of friendship. But life changes you, and now she just even dreads to introspect that why does she feel the hollow sometimes, why does she feel the way she does, what is still missing. It's scary, and she does not want to do that. Enticing monsters beat up her foolish angels, the scaries of the world. They came to her naive foolish angels and they beat them up and told her to stop being so optimistic and looking forward to good things, because they're never gonna come. The monsters got in her head and she believed it, and she's become pessimistic. She does not believe good is coming. She thinks everything that can go wrong will go wrong, because it did go wrong. So a lot of the stuff that she used to look up to, she used to have this faith in friendship, like it will last beyond anything, there's nothing that can shake it. But that's not true. Sometimes people hurt you in a way that it cannot continue, and I mean, maybe it could, but I think both parties would know it's all pretense, and one thing she can't do is fake anything, so it's basically gone. And yeah, but then sometimes she did introspect, because she's also very, very, very curious. And in her phone, in her notes app, dating back to when she was 11 years old, she found diary entries about this optimistic girl writing about how she wants to change the world, how she wants to achieve this, achieve that, how she wants to write a book, how she wants people to read what she writes. And she's reading all of this as a 25-year-old girl and seeing what her 11-year-old self wanted of her. And 14 years later, she decides to pick up the pen, because, well, what else were there to left to lose? So she went with it. So she wrote this book and she put it out there for the world to read, because yeah, she isn't even sure if there's a lesson to take. She just wanted to tell her story because she loves stories. They raised her. And they forgot to check in if she was growing up unfazed. Spinning visceral mayhem, her mind grew in the trenches unattended. yeah, at some point of time, when you're a person who sort of has isolated themselves enough that people sort of from a distance make that judgment, yeah, that she's got it, she's doing this, and they're more about having you for them than being there for you. That's not the case anymore, but it used to be at a point for her. It She was angry that why isn't anyone checking up, and it's probably stupid, but it was like, yeah, I told you I'm all right, but you should have asked me twice. Because she just wanted them to. She wanted them to be the hopeless, romantic, caring person that she was. And yeah, because that reciprocation didn't come from the world, she gradually lost that aspect of herself. And now to end it, a girl wrapped in red scarf, borrowing void-born affection of maternal influence, used to go by a different name. She kept finding reasons to undo her existence. Crushed by the weight of rouge waves, submerging a budding zest to live, homesick for a feeling of arrival, sprouting within, a soldier with inked cannons awakens to take control of this haphazard fate. A force drowned her in a sea of red and changed the monochrome to aquamarine spreads, the views of which you'll find revered in this tale, waiting to be read by you. Once done, she's hoping it will no longer be hers. The pain would leave and this life renewed. So this red scarf is from this another very, very, very beautiful story that she obviously holds very, very close to her heart. And she asked her mother to make it, and it represented maternal influence that sometimes was because of reasons out of anybody's control, not present for her as she was growing up. She was crushed by the weight of rouge waves. These rouge waves represent that lack of maternal um, influence, the lack of that checkup that she wanted, that uh, she thinks that a mother would have noticed that her mind was growing in the trenches unattended, and she needed intervention to tell her to regulate her expectations, regulate her faith, regulate her love, because these are all beautiful things, but they still need to be regulated. Sometimes too much of anything is poison, and to her it was after a point. But yeah, uh, she was homesick for that feeling of arrival. She wanted to feel like finally she has reached that sense of herself, that this is who she is. Because these fictional characters, these stories, the music left a mark on her. Her identity wasn't clear to her. She wanted to feel like she had finally arrived to herself. And so, a soldier within, with inked cannons, she started writing, and she started expressing, she started putting it into words, and she wanted to be more clear. She wanted to emphasize the things she did want and she did not want, and writing helped her, which is why she loves to do that. And every time her life goes haphazard, that's what she does. She picks up a pen or she picks up her phone and she just starts writing, and it comes to her and it makes her feel better. And I think a lot of people, a lot of writers can relate to that. A force drowned her in a sea of red, then changed the monochrome to aquamarine spreads. This line personally means to me. This force is her own writing. That voice within in your head where you've picked up the pen and you just cannot stop. You go at it and you've written a 5-page long poem. And that sea of red was maternal influence, but this time it came from her. She was giving understanding and warmth, and she was hugging her own childhood self. That's the force. And she decided to change all those colors, the sadness that the blues represented, and she took out the positivities of those moments that she'd forgotten to look at, because she was so disappointed for so long. She did not know how to process what she had experienced. And she picked up that color of the palette and she changed it into the happiest thing for her. The monochrome was changed to aquamarine spreads. And the views of those spreads, the views of those experiences, the views of what led to what, you will find in this book, which is waiting on being read by you. And once done, that pain would leave and the life renewed. So, yeah, this is a very, very special poem, and I hope you liked it. And if you did, you can read the rest of them in here, and you can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, and the ebook, all in the link attached. And yeah, maybe I'll do this again for some other poem that I really love. Yeah, okay, bye.